People think power is loud, but real power is silent. It doesn't shout, doesn't beg, doesn't chase. It simply exists, and everything else adjusts. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And the moment you become that person, you become powerful. Not because you dominate others, but because you are no longer controlled by anything outside yourself." This is the psychology of personal power, the quiet, deep kind that cannot be taken away. Power is one of the most misunderstood forces in human behavior. Most people think personal power means being stronger, louder, richer, or more intimidating. But psychologists have found that the most powerful people don't seek control over anyone. They seek control over themselves. And ironically, that is exactly what makes them magnetic. To understand personal power, you have to understand that it isn't something you acquire. It's something you grow into. Personal power begins where fear ends. Every person carries invisible fears. The fear of rejection, judgment, failure, abandonment, or being misunderstood. Entire lives are shaped by these fears. People stay silent because they're scared. They stay small because they're scared. They follow the crowd because they're scared. That is why Friedrich Nietzsche said, "The world breaks most people, and some become stronger at the broken places." Power starts when you decide that fear will no longer dictate your life. When you stop living for approval, you stop living afraid. When you stop chasing validation, you stop chasing people. When you stop letting others define you, you finally define yourself. That is the first spark of personal power. Psychologist Carl Jung believed every human has two selves: the persona, the mask we show the world, and the self, the person we truly are. Most people spend their entire lives protecting the mask. They act confident to hide insecurity. They act agreeable to avoid conflict. They act strong because they fear being seen as weak. But personal power begins the moment you drop the mask and choose authenticity over approval. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When you understand yourself, you stop being controlled by who others want you to be. Most people don't lack strength, they lack self-understanding. You cannot be powerful if you don't even know the person holding the power. One of the greatest signs of personal power is the ability to walk away, not from people or places, but from anything that compromises your self-respect. Alfred Adler believed all human problems are problems of courage, and walking away is one of the highest forms of courage. Walking away means I will not fight for my worth. It's already inside me. I will not beg to be chosen. I choose myself. I will not stay where I am shrinking. I only stay where I grow. The weak cling. The powerful release. The weak chase. The powerful attract. The weak react. The powerful respond. When you can walk away from anything that does not honor your value, you become untouchable. Real power comes from emotional regulation. It is not physical strength or dominance, but emotional self-mastery. Daniel Goleman, the father of emotional intelligence, proved that the people who regulate their emotions perform better, lead better, and connect better. A powerful person does not panic during uncertainty, explode when provoked, crumble when criticized, or lose control under pressure. They remain grounded, stable, and calm. When others control your emotions, they control you. But when you control your emotions, you control your life. This is why the most powerful people are often the calmest in the room. Not because life is easy, but because chaos has no access to their inner world. Boundaries are another foundation of personal power. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors, and you decide who enters. A person without boundaries is a person without power. Psychologist Henry Cloud said, "Boundaries define where you end and where someone else begins." Powerful people say no without guilt, express their needs clearly, walk away from disrespect, and protect their energy. Weak people drain themselves to please others. Powerful people protect themselves to preserve their strength. Boundaries are not selfish. They are proof that you value yourself enough to choose what stays in your life. Purpose is also a form of power. A person with purpose is more powerful than a person with status. Power is not about position, it's about direction. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow." When a person discovers their purpose, they stop being controlled by fear, opinions, or obstacles. Purpose gives a spine to the human spirit. It gives clarity to chaos and strength to suffering. You cannot break a person who knows where they're going. Personal power grows from taking full responsibility. People who lack power always find something to blame: their past, parents, environment, circumstances, or luck. But power grows when someone says, I am responsible for my life. Not everything is your fault, but it is your responsibility. Responsibility gives you control. Blame gives your control to someone else. As long as you blame, you remain powerless. When you take responsibility, you reclaim your power. Another sign of personal power is the ability to be alone. Many people fear solitude because they have never been safe within themselves. Erich Fromm said, "The ability to be alone is the condition for the ability to love. Only those comfortable with solitude choose relationships out of desire, not desperation." People without power cling to toxic relationships, chase attention, or lose themselves to be loved. People with power enjoy their own company, maintain identity in relationships, and remain grounded in silence. The person who can walk alone is the hardest person to manipulate. Jung's concept of the shadow reveals that power also comes from self-integration. The shadow contains the parts of us we hide: our fears, insecurities, impulses, shame, and unhealed wounds. Weak people avoid their shadow and try to look perfect. Powerful people confront it and transform it. Shadow work means facing your triggers, understanding your wounds, analyzing your patterns, and making peace with your darkness. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You cannot be powerful if you are running from parts of yourself. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself, prove itself, or compete. Confidence simply says, I know who I am. Powerful people do not brag, compare, or try to impress. They don't seek validation or justify themselves. Their strength comes from within, a deep, steady sense of self-respect. Power also comes from alignment. When your words, actions, values, and choices align, you become powerful. A misaligned person is easy to manipulate because they are full of internal conflict. But an aligned person is immune to manipulation because they are clear about who they are and what they stand for. Alignment creates inner strength. Misalignment creates inner chaos. And inner chaos is the enemy of personal power. Finally, personal power is the refusal to be controlled. Michel Foucault spent his life studying power and concluded that power exists wherever there is control. But the highest form of control is self-control. When people cannot control your emotions, decisions, or identity, you become unstoppable. When life cannot break you, it begins to respect you. When circumstances cannot bend you, you rise above them. This is the essence of personal power, the quiet inner authority that comes from self-ownership. Power is not something you chase. It's something you cultivate through self-understanding, self-respect, emotional mastery, boundaries, purpose, solitude, responsibility, and alignment. Power is when nothing outside you is stronger than what's inside you. Remember this: the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. The quietest one usually is.